Hi everyone, welcome to a live GMAT Club video on a Sunday. We are in August right now, so I finished almost 2.5 months of full-time working right after my MBA. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shovik. I am a recent alum at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. I started working in big tech. I spent my summer in big tech, although in a different company. We'll talk through all those details today. But today, I really wanted to focus on tech careers post MBA and just how to navigate the situation. What are the different roles available? How much money do you make? Right. But I want to focus on the 5 different paths that people take right from business school in the technology, internet, e-commerce, that whole domain. Right. So what I will do is I'll go through these roles and these industries one by one, these are going to be functional roles, right? So you can do these roles at different tech companies. Like you can do these roles at Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Netflix, whatever, right? And most of them are going to be very MBA specific. If you're going to do any other master's program, you may still have access to these roles, but it may be slightly different, right? So this actually prompted, this whole video was prompted from this call that I had with another GMAT club member, and she was asking me that, hey, like I'm getting a promotion. I'm also thinking of getting applying to business school. The promotion comes with a nice little pay bump. It also is going to give me more experience in managing people. I just want to know a little bit more about what kind of roles can I expect. I know product management and strategy and all of that are very common, but I want to get into slightly more granular details of what do people do right after business school in tech so that I can make a more informed decision on whether I should quit my job, apply to business school, take that risk, etc. Right. So that's what I want to do. But I want to follow a structure. The structure that I want to follow today is I want to go through each of these functions and each of these roles, and I'm going to give you 4 things that I want to talk about for each of those roles. Number one will be how easy or difficult it is to get out of business school. Number two, what are the typical companies that hire? What are some nitty gritties? Because these roles are very different across different companies. So role X can mean very different in Amazon versus what it means for, let's say, an Apple or a Microsoft. And then the third thing that I want to talk about is what's the progression look like? Like, okay, fine, you got that job right after business school, but what do you really do 3 years from now or 4 years from now? What are the possible opportunities for you to actually step up and do various things? And then finally, number four is is this a good idea? What's the return on your investment, or whether this is the right path for you? And then after I go through these 4 things for each of these roles, I actually want to answer questions. So if you have questions about that specific role, feel free to chime in the comment, and then I'm going to put that comment on the live video, and then we're going to talk through it. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So before we jump into it, just tell me where you're coming from. I asked this question yesterday when I was solving 5 sentence correction questions. Tell me where you're coming from and where in the business school journey are you? Are you applying? Have you already applied? Are you? Do you want a job in tech? Do you want a job in something else? Tell me that, and then we'll jump right in. Just drinking some coffee. It's pretty early today in Seattle. It's 9 a.m. By the way, while you're doing that, while you're telling me where you're from and what you want to do with tech, just a quick background about myself. I said I was a recent alum from the University of Michigan. I came to business school to transition to tech. I was working in tech before. I was working in kind of startup-y little thing, mostly like ed tech type stuff. Ed tech, for those of you who don't know, it's like tech based in education, how tech act as an enabler for education. So I was doing all of that, and then I was also working on GMAT Club, which was very producty experiences. But I wanted to have a taste of big tech. I wanted to see how I can, increase my impact at scale, and wanted to work on products that reaches to, millions of people and billions of people, for example. So um, I came to Ross and really focused on tech recruiting. And I did have some plan B. I did some consulting recruiting. For those of you who didn't see the mock consulting case interview that I did with one of my friend from business school, we both did a little bit of consulting. He was more focused on consulting. I wasn't. I was focused on tech, but I also wanted to play around with different roles. I wasn't really sure if I can get into product management, so I was doing product management, product marketing, and all of that. Um, and landed a job at Apple for my summer. I was a product manager intern for their productivity team. I had a really good experience. It was awesome, and can't really talk much about it. I signed multiple NDAs, and then I also, for my summer, I realized that I got a lot of tech interviews. I interviewed with Microsoft, interviews with Dell, Cisco, Apple, of course, but not a whole lot more. I realized that I didn't have great brand names on my resume. I didn't work for like a Google in India or a Microsoft in India or like a McKinsey. So I didn't have huge brand names. So that was a big factor in me not getting those interviews. But after I had Apple on my resume for full time, I practically interviewed everywhere. I interviewed for Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple. At Apple, you don't get return offers, so you have to interview again. Um, then I practically could get interviews from anywhere. Adobe, I practically could get interviews from anywhere I wanted. So interviewed with all these places, ended up getting offers from Apple, Amazon, and a bunch of other tech companies. Decided that the Bay Area was not really for me. I liked the Bay Area, but I did not really love it. I always wanted to live in a big city, and if I could live in San Francisco, I would. But Bay Area as a whole felt like a giant parking lot, and I just didn't see myself there. And then so I moved to Seattle, joined Amazon, joined Amazon Web Services actually, and now I'm a part of their part of a small team that works for a specific cloud service. I can't go into more details on that. Awesome. So a ton of you are responding to the comments. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. It sort of tells me where you guys are from and and gives me a little bit more context. So we are going to go ahead and start really quick. Just give me a second. Awesome. So with that said, we'll jump into the roles, right? And I want to go from most popular, most coveted to less. So I'm going to do a popularity descending order, right? So the first one that I want to talk about is, of course, product management. And product management is sort of the big marquee tech role that people want to get into. If you talk to anybody who has really strong ambitions of getting into business school, that person will probably say, yeah, you know what? I want to be a product manager. If you look at essays that people apply to for business school, you would see that product management comes up over and over and over again. And unfortunately, most people don't really know what product management is. And I'm not gonna, this is not a video where you sort of decode product management, but I would say it's in your benefit to research a ton more on product management before you sort of jump into that ship that sails toward product management. So I would be a little bit cautious. So we'll jump into different categories, right? Number one, product management. What are the different companies that hire for product management? So in business school, a ton of companies have for PM positions, but they're very hard to get into. They're very hard to get into because the bar is really high, because a ton of people with like really strong product and engineering backgrounds apply for these roles. They generally pay a lot of money. They're generally like one of the top tiers of compensation in business school. So it just gets competitive, right? The companies that really hire for product management roles, let's say Google. Google has a very strong product management space right after MBA. So they have a specific pool you don't really apply for a specific job, but you get you apply and interview for a generic position, and then like after you're accepted and after you accept their offer, you figure out your compensation, negotiate. Then they tell you that, hey, by the way, you are going to be a PM for this product in Google search, right? So something like that. And then you have Amazon. Amazon has a massive product management pipeline from MBAs. But in Amazon, product management have two types. The first one is a product manager. So generally, the role is called the senior product manager, and that product management role is, I would say, it's less product managery, but more like a business strategy thing, because you'll probably end up working either in the e-commerce side of things or the supply chain side of things. That's still a really great role. You make a lot of money, but it's not very technical, if that makes sense. You'll do a lot of project stuff, but not super technical. What Amazon has more traditional product management is this role called the product management technical, or PMTs. It's very common to Amazon, but I would say a senior PMT at Amazon is very equivalent to like a high level Google product manager. So at that role, it's like the highest paid role in a lot of Amazon. And what you would be doing is driving a product. You'd be working very closely with engineers. You will literally launch a product. You will discuss features. You will write, like product documents. Amazon has a very document heavy culture, and it's your responsibility whether the product is very successful or it's an epic failure, right? So it's completely up to you. So you have to sort of shoulder most of the responsibilities for that specific product. Yeah. So, and then for other tech companies that hire for product management roles, you have something like a Microsoft. So Microsoft, they don't call them product managers, they call them program managers, but essentially they do the same thing as product managers, which is driving features, driving a product. But in my experience, what I've seen is that Microsoft program managers tend to be somewhat more technical. And as a result, not a ton of people from business school in traditional product management roles in Microsoft. So just let you, I'll come back to Microsoft because Microsoft hires a ton of MBAs. So I'll come back to that, but just keep that in mind. If you're going for a very traditional product management role, Microsoft may not be the best place. And then it's the same thing with Apple. So Apple, to be honest, doesn't really have a specific product management role. What Apple has is a mix of product management and product marketing. They call them product managers, but it's basically product marketing. But you get to work with engineers very closely, but it's on you to build that relationship, and it's on you to drive the different needs that your product has. And Apple is also very skinny when it comes to number of people they hire. So getting that role is very, very challenging, really, really difficult. I had a really hard time. I consider myself super lucky to have gotten a role, but it was challenging to get that. And then you have, like Facebook, for example. Facebook has something called a rotational PM that directly has from MBA. So basically, you go to Facebook and you rotate in different products, and then you become a PM. It's very similar to Google, very similar structures, like pays slightly better, I guess. Facebook pays really well, but very similar to Google and Amazon PMT. You drive a product, you drive the vision, but very, very hard to get into. It's not easy at all, and you really need to have your technical chops. You probably need to have an engineering or a product experience. So, and then you have other smaller companies like, a smaller company like Adobe has a market cap of like billions of dollars, but you have smaller companies, but they hire for PMs a lot. Like Adobe has a ton of PM options. It's very producty, very similar to Microsoft and Apple. Like those roles are closer to a product marketing than product management. So just keep an eye out for that. You're not going to do very engineering heavy work, but your job is going to be to take a product and like launch it into space, like be responsible for the launch, drive the growth, listen to customers, provide feedback to engineers, and be the face of the product. Awesome. So that's all about product management. So I want take some questions. Shoot me questions if you have on product management. So it's MBA necessary for the product management role? No, not really. In fact, a ton of people would go do like a master's in data science or a master's in analytics and get into PM roles. That's totally possible. A lot of people don't have a master's degree and they're just fine. They started in a software engineering side. By the way, software engineering gets a ton of money, like a ton. So from there, you can switch to PM pretty easily. But that switch is not because of the money, because you are making really good money as an engineer anyway. That switch is because like you want to expand beyond your domain of engineering, you want to manage people, you want to be more customer centric. So those things become more important. Okay, question. Difference between product management, product marketing. When you come to that, my next topic is product marketing, so we'll get to that. Does Facebook sponsor international for the PM role? No, it doesn't. That's a bummer. But if you did get, let's say you have another role, and let's say you have your H1B, like for example, I just got my H1B lottery selected. So I officially have an H1B now, so I can apply to Facebook. I'm not going to. I'm very happy with my own work right now. But if you have an H1B, Facebook will be pretty happy to like make that transfer for you. And I've seen people do that. Also, another option is to go to Facebook for a non-PM role, and they can sponsor people for that, um, and then figure out whether you want to jump into PM. Because once you get sponsored and once you have a visa, that shouldn't be a problem, right? All right. So, okay, getting a ton of questions. So let's see. Can someone with an energy background and an MBA be a product manager at Apple or AWS? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. My manager at Amazon right now worked for like military and energy applications. Yeah, I think your background doesn't matter all that much. As it matters is your basic technical chops and technical expertise. I think that's sort of more important. Um, okay, is product management the same as project management? It is not. We'll get to some of that. Can you get a PM role with no technical background? Very challenging. It's really tough. So I would say not having a technical background is a big impediment for product management roles, right? So you can build some of that. Like it's not difficult to build that technical background. And technical background is a vague term, right? What does it really mean? Like, does it mean you can code? Does it mean you can understand like an architecture diagram and talk comfortably to engineers? It means a lot of things, and you can surely prep for that. And you would know that a lot of engineers, like a lot of former engineers, did like, I don't know, some electrical engineering. Like Sundar Pichai was a metallurgical engineer, as far as I remember. That didn't stop him. Like metallurgical engineer, then he went to McKinsey, and then like he went to Wharton, and then went to McKinsey, and then he went to Google, right? So it doesn't really matter, but it matters on that interview stage at the beginning. So there's a lot that you can do in terms of prep to actually offset some of those challenges. Talk about operations management. We'll come to that. Can you talk Indian market for product management roles for engineers? A ton of roles actually. Like a few friends work for Amazon, Microsoft product management roles. A friend works for Paytm, and his work has been really challenging because of the pandemic. Paytm has seen like a surge of growth, and he works like 20 hours a day. A very unsustainable lifestyle. So, how much tech, computer science background is for PMM roles after the MBA? For PMM, not at all. You don't need a tech, computer science background for PMM. For tech, you do. It doesn't need to be a formal education. Like, I don't have a computer science engineering degree. I managed to get interviews and offers from Google. So, you do need to prep. Like, for example, before my interviews, even though most of my work in tech companies before an MBA was with front end stuff, and front end stuff is generally like frowned upon. People don't really care about the people who do front end. But so for that reason, I actually prepped a ton on the back end stuff. And I'm talking things like system design, data structures, algorithms. So I learned a lot. Like if you had asked me, like, hey, can you tell me how Twitter works? Which is a very typical system design question in any of these tech companies. I would be able to give like a 8 out of 10 answer, right? So you have to prep, and I think you can prep. So it's like asking, can I take the GMAT if I don't have a math major? I'm sure you can. It just needs a prep. That's pretty much it. Okay, I'm getting too many questions. That's like getting a little tough. How is the technical product management different from regular product management? Just answered this question a little bit before. So technical product managers or PMTs, they do more traditional producty work. Product managers do more project based. Again, it depends on org to org, but technical product managers are more traditional product manager sense. Okay, I'm going to move to my next one, which is product marketing. So product marketing is also like just as common and actually hires more MBAs because Microsoft hires a ton. Like Microsoft alone hires probably 50% of all product marketers coming in from business school. So again, product marketing means very different things. Like for example, in a company like Apple or Adobe, you are basically working with one specific product, and you are working from listening to customers, sending in feature requests, managing that process. And then when launch happens, you're practically dead because you're sort of managing the whole launch. For example, product marketers at Apple would even go into the smallest details ever and be involved with that. Like, for example, how does it look in a retail store? Or how does it look in a retail store in a different region? How does localization look for that China region, for example? So you have to go into very small details for launches. So that's what the main role is in a company like Apple or Adobe. For Microsoft, though, product marketing and Microsoft can mean a bunch of different things. It can mean things like that launch, but because Microsoft is very enterprisey, a lot of product marketing at Microsoft is very strategic. Our product marketing at Microsoft has a really big pull. They drive a ton of decisions, and a lot of that is based on like how you do pricing, how do you enter the market, which competitors are doing really well, and how should you respond to that. This becomes the whole product marketing domain, and it's a really, really big domain. I think Microsoft has the biggest product marketing or marketing organization that I've ever seen. I think it's even bigger than Apple. So that's what it is. Product marketing, again, you don't need any background in tech for product marketing roles. What you need to do is the passion for marketing. You need to be able to draw your frameworks, and you need to be able to apply those marketing frameworks. You learned it in business school. You need to be able to apply those marketing frameworks within a very strategic tech problem. And that's sort of how you get the job. I have a ton of friends. My roommate Sam, who has been on a ton of these videos, is a product marketing manager at Microsoft. So I'm trying to get him in one of these videos to tell him more about his experience. I think he just finished 1 month of work. All right. Does one really need dual degree programs for tech PM, or are they like sufficient? You don't really need anything. Nobody cares what degree you're doing. However, if you have a non-engineering background, and sometimes your resume will be screened out if you don't have an engineering background, right? So for that, I've seen people do dual degrees and been successful. So a ton of people will do like an MBA, MS in computer science or information management. So some of those things, and then get interviews at Google, Amazon, etc. I had an engineering background, although it had nothing to do with tech. So I didn't have those challenges. I'm glad I had a engineering background, but yeah. Do Google, Netflix, Amazon have PMM roles? Yes, they do. Amazon has fewer PMM roles because a product manager at Amazon does a lot of marketing side as well. But Google has a ton. Netflix also has them. But I don't really see Netflix recruiting a lot from business school. They do. It's not like they don't, but the scale is significantly smaller than an Amazon or a Google. All right. Okay, can someone from cybersecurity testing environment? Yes, they can. There's not really a bar of, okay, we don't really like people from this background, or we don't really like people from that background. So you don't really have to worry about that. What you need to worry about is, can you talk about products? Can you talk about what are the different metrics that you will need to analyze product success? So as long as you have a very productive way of thinking, you should be fine. Awesome. Do Google, Netflix. Okay, got it. What is the experience cap, energy? There's no experience cap. I've seen people 4 years out of college getting into PM roles. I've seen people 10 years out of college getting into PM roles. Very, very similar. Shed some light on Facebook PMM role. Again, very similar to PMM at Google and PMM at Apple. You're practically leading the launches. You're working very closely with product managers, but also you work closely with sales. You work closely with business development. So you're basically on the front face side of the product, not much on the engineering side or on the back end, but you are more known for driving the launch. And that would mean presentations, that would mean how it gets promoted, different channels, what's the channel strategy. It would be very different for a hardware product like Portal versus a software product like Messenger. Um, awesome. Cool. Let's jump into the next one, which is strategy and business operations. Now, this one is also very popular for MBAs. And I would go on to say that this is sort of where your MBA can really help you because this is very strategic, very consulting. In fact, a lot of consultants transition to tech after they're burnt out and they hate their jobs. And this is generally where they go. This is generally where they add more value. So if you look at the strategy or business operations function in like a Google or an Amazon or Apple or whatever, you would see that they are all ex-consultants or ex-business school, very business school type thing. And here you'll deal with a variety of problems. Like at Apple, for example, this group would do a ton of sales work, figuring out which region is doing well, which channels are doing well, and which channels are not doing well. And also, they would do a ton of mergers and acquisition work. And that would mean, and that's why at Apple, for their strategy ops and for their M&A ops, you have a ton of people from Goldman Sachs. And there have been articles about it and how like Goldman, like the whole Apple M&A is like a mini Goldman. So, and M&A type things needs a lot of very consulting type due diligence. So you need to look at what the synergies are. You need to look at does it look good for a company like Apple. So those things become more important, and it becomes less about product and engineering, but becomes a lot more about overall strategy. How does it play well with other products that the company has and stuff like that. So this one, for the biggest hirers are Google, Microsoft. I haven't seen a ton of Amazonians working in strategy and business ops, but there sure are. But I haven't seen that to be a strong pipeline right out of business school. There are people from Apple who go to the strategy and business ops functions right out of MBA. Not the majority, but I would say Microsoft and Google are sort of the two pillars. And again, a lot of strategy and biz ops is actually part of the marketing org at Microsoft, right? So depending on what kind of marketing you're doing, you could be doing a ton of strategy and operations focused work, which is why sort of marketing at Microsoft is like this really, really big group, much bigger than any of the other tech companies because you absorb so many other functions within marketing. Awesome. Let's move to the next one, which is program management. And this one's easy. So the only exception to this role is Microsoft, which calls its product managers program managers. So I'm not going to get into that. But for program management for other tech companies is basically being a project manager for this for their team. And that could be being a project manager for their engineering team, could also be being a project manager for the product launch. So it would depend on whether you are in the engineering org or whether you're in the marketing org. Like, for example, a typical engineering project manager at Apple, for example, would run the general life cycle of the whole engineering space. And that would start with deciding on which features to build. T-shirt sizing, for example, is okay, I'm using tech jargon. Sorry about that. So t-shirt sizing is practically like how much engineering effort would it take to build a product and what's sort of the ROI of building that. And the ROI doesn't have to be in terms of money. It could be in terms of growth, usage, new customers, and stuff like that. Could also be like, zero ROI. You want to do it because Tim Cook told you to, and that's fine. And those things are all fine. So program management, you generally do like Kanban stuff. You also do a ton of Scrums, Agile if you're on the engineering side of things. For marketing and launch, you're doing a lot of interfacing. Doing a lot of interfacing with channels. Basically, if something goes wrong in launch, it's your fault. You're going to take the blame for that. So you and the marketing person uh, who was doing this with you. All right, so that sort of program management, I kept it small because we talked about product and marketing. So those things sort of generally cover program management as well. I'm going to look at some questions. Would you say strategy is the best role in tech for a person with finance background? It depends. Like it depends on the person. It depends on what he or she wants to do. Like for example, there exists a ton of specific finance roles, which is my next role. So let me get to that. But I would say strategy is a role where you can apply your business school concepts the most. You literally do like Porter's analysis and stuff. So if you want to really make your business school education count, maybe strategy is the best option. I don't know. Let's see more questions. Can people with engineering background recruit for strategy BizOps M&A? What are their prospects? How is the... Yeah, I mean, again, your background can only help you. Your background cannot exclude you. I had a background in teaching. Who cares? But I still managed to get some jobs. I think that's fine. For example, most consultants do strategy, BizOps, M&A type work, and most consultants, when they're recruiting, they really don't care about your background. They specifically don't care about your background. And you can have people who went to Peace Corps, who went to like Teach for America and whatever. You have people who've been unemployed. That's fine as long as you're a critical thinker and you are like an analytical person. It should be fine. I wouldn't worry about your background too much. Can you talk about the growth track? What do PMs do? Yes, that's a great question, and I'll get to that at the end. Last one is the finance org, and this one's easy. So you either do, so finance can be two things. It could be product finance, or it could be accounting finance. Now, if you're doing accounting finance, then a lot of your work is based on revenue and revenue recognition, a ton of stuff that you learn from business school. And that's very cool. A lot of former accountants start with those roles. They are very intense because like these companies, they have like hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue each quarter. So the accounting stuff is really challenging. So it's really stressful work. And then the other side of the coin is product-based finance, which is basically driving the financial and the fiscal elements of a product. Like for example, what's the cost structure of the product? How much money do you need to make? How does that drive pricing strategy? It's again, I'm sorry to bring up Microsoft, but Microsoft is somewhere is a thing where finance is very intricately related to product and to marketing. So the finance team interface a lot with business planners at Microsoft to drive some of those decisions. And product finance is actually really, really big at Microsoft. At Amazon, finance also, like product finance also supports the product function. Like they will help you with goals, they would help you with forecasts and help you drive decisions. And then at different points, they would also help you to check how you are doing with your goals. Does that need a strategic shift if you're not meeting your goals, etc.? So those kind of things will always be there. Sort of running out of time, so I want to take the question that I got which is basically the growth track of a product manager. And generally, it would seem very similar for other roles, but the growth track is important. So let's jump into that a little bit. So generally, you are at least a PM for 2 to 3 years. You don't really get promoted in less than that. There are exceptions. Like for example, one person I know who shall not be named got promoted to a senior PM role in 2 years, and that's like from a PM. Like a PM to a senior PM took 2 years for him, and that generally is an exception. I would say two to 3 years is very common. And then if you start with the PM role, then you generally move to a senior PM role. After that, that promotion happens. It's very common. After that, there's a chance of a stall. Again, as a senior PM, you're making a lot of money. You're making really, really good money. After that, you become like a more management-y type thing, but not everybody makes it. I've seen senior PMs who have been senior PMs for 10, 15 years of their lives, and some of them even more. And look, there's nothing wrong in that. Like, for example, a ton of people choose to do that way. They don't want to manage people. They want to be an individual contributor all their life because that's what makes them happy. And look, there's no difference in compensation. You can be a senior PM and make boatloads of money. You can be a senior PM and make more money than a PM who manages three other PMs. Totally, always happens. There are senior PMs at Apple who have been senior PMs since Steve Jobs was alive. So imagine what the stock is worth right now. So it depends on what you really want to do. So at Amazon, in about 3 to 4 years, if you do really well, you can be something called a principal PM. A principal PM is like a PM of PM. So it's like one level higher than senior PMs. You'll manage about 4 to 5 people, sometimes even more. And then after a couple years as a principal PM, if you are doing really well, you can move up to be a group manager or a general manager, and then to a director. And again, if you're a director at a company like Amazon, Microsoft, you are probably looking at retiring because you have spent about 10, 15 years. You might spend more, but you have enough money to like ride the sunset and get done. So that's the product management hierarchy within the company. But a lot of people move around. So it's very common for a senior PM or a principal PM at a big tech company to go to a startup as like a VP of product, right? That's a very, very common transition. So you're jumping vertically in terms of role and in terms of function, but you're reducing the scale. From Apple, you went to, let's say, like Stripe or Robinhood. That's kind of, so you're reducing the scale to get a jump in your vertical promotions. That's also another thing. Okay, what's the salary post MBA and after promotion? Good question. People don't ask it, but I'm pretty sure people are thinking that. Generally, as a product manager, you'll earn anywhere between, and I'm talking about the total salary, you'll earn anywhere between $180,000 to about $250,000, depending on the company that you go in. I think Facebook pays the most money, but you'll probably make a base of like 130, 140 to 150. You have stocks of maybe 150 to $200,000 vesting over 4 years. You also have like 50, $60,000 worth of sign-on bonuses. So, and this compensation structure is different across different industries, different companies. So take it with a grain of salt. But what would really help, if you really want to know, is this website called transparentcareer.com. It's built for like MBA folks, and it would help you get an idea of how much they make. In terms of promotions, if you become a manager of PMs, you're looking at total comp of maybe $320,000 per year. That's a ton of money. You will not know what to do with it. And if you're making a director, you're talking millions of dollars. So that's sort of the structure. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. We're sort of running out of time, but I will do more MBA type sessions every Sunday. So I've sort of kept GMAT for Saturdays where I solve GMAT questions for some people who are still taking the GMAT, and then do some MBA topics. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and come back every Sunday because I do videos every Sunday. So on MBA, on topics like these and careers and post MBA and stuff like that. I'm also going to do some more mock interviews that gives you an idea of how these things go behind the scenes. Like the video, if this video was helpful, I'd actually push you to take a moment and like the video. And again, I don't get money if you like the video, but it helps GMAT Club to get these videos in front of more eyeballs, and more people get help from these videos, and that's always nice. So please like the video. It will mean a lot to me. Subscribe to the channel, and come back next Sunday for more MBA career type discussions. Come back next Saturday for more GMAT videos. And also, those videos are already scheduled, so you can go to the GMAT Club channel, go down, see upcoming live streams, and set a reminder so that you don't forget. Awesome. Again, my name is Shovik. Thanks so much for joining. I'm going to go ahead and make some more coffee, and you guys have a great weekend. Thanks.